All right. Good morning, everybody. Pasting in the notes and the agenda that we're on today. Welcome everybody to the Ouija Platforms General Meeting, November 28th. So our agenda today, we've got Boris Kirkshiev is going to talk to us about the backstack, and then we're going to also talk about the interviewing framework that we've been working on the past few weeks. But we like to start out just asking folks. There's a lot of new faces here, so if you're shy, you don't have to come off and say hello. But we like to know who you are. Just take 30 seconds. Tell us, your interest if you want. We'll take a few minutes here to do that. Let people introduce themselves. Steve, I see you got your hands up. Go for it.
Hi, yeah, I'm Steve. This is my first time here. I found the working group online a couple of days ago, so I'm quite interested in tracking the work, and I saw about this maturity model and the interview framework, and it got me super excited. So I've kind of come along to find out more, and yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out about it.
Thanks, Steve. Vladimir, did you have your hand up next?
Yep. Hi there. So principally the same background as Steve, with small addition that I have found the group because I am working currently in context of the platform KPIs measurement and adoption. And this sounds extremely interesting how the theoretical background could be implemented and can be helpful in my context.
Yeah, that's hugely helpful to us. I think one of our hypotheses is that people struggle with measurement, so it will be interesting to hear from you. Yeah, Paul.
Hey everyone, Paul Jones here, Principal Engineer with JetStack Consult. We've actually started a practice internally around what we're calling fleet ops, which is kind of akin, you could say, to fleet management and a big overlap with sort of platform engineering. So naturally, yeah, the working group kind of fit the bill for that. So yeah, just interested in getting involved in some of the conversations. Yeah, I've been looking at the white papers that have been coming out as well. So yeah, really keen to get involved and help out where possible. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks. Yeah, Nicholas.
Hey everybody, I'm Nicholas Mori. I'm a developer advocate at Acuity and a member of the Argo project. I'm here in support of the backstack, but I also spent some time on the weekend reading over the maturity model and the definitions for platform, those white papers. So really excited about the work that this group is doing.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about backstack. David, I think you were next up.
Yeah, my name is Dave Stenglein. I'm a solo consultant with Missing Mass LLC, and I do platform consulting. I've been working with platforms for over a decade or so, cloud and otherwise, and just getting involved with the working group and the platform as a product effort.
I like how you say you've been working on platforms for a decade. Yeah, they've been around for a long time.
I'd say almost 30 years if we consider Unix itself a platform, but
Hey, Plat and Arch, yeah, let's call it Plat. Clement, do you want, or Ritesh? Sorry, Clement. Ritesh had his hand up before.
Thank you. I'm Ritesh Patel from Nirmata. I lead products here, and I'm here to introduce Backstack. Along with Nick and Murph and Boris. Super excited about this working group. Boris from Nirmata, represents us at the working group, and we're excited to be, a part of the overall platform architecture and looking forward to collaborating more.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We're definitely looking forward to hearing about it. Clement.
All right, hello everybody, I'm Clement. I'm a platform engineering at Consensus, and I've been using Kubernetes to build platform for the last 4 years. I'm pretty active in the crossplane project. I had a talk in the last KubeCon, so I'm really interested in the backstack. So really happy to see familiar faces here. And yeah, I kept hearing about the YG group during KubeCon. Also saw the white paper earlier last week. So really interested to to hear a lot about what everybody's doing and how the working group function and what you guys talk about. Yeah.
Thank you. I see it's 10:06, so it's okay that we're taking a little. We started early today, so but let's get the last couple of folks here. Murph, I see you had your hand up first. So.
You're on mute, Murph.
There we go. My story is similar to some of the others. I'm one of the initial authors of Backstack, but am keen to. I'm taking this as an opportunity to engage with the working group. So it's just the kick in the butt I needed to start showing up.
We're glad to have you. Brian, hey, how's it going? Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, sure, man. So first of all, hello, everyone. First time at this meeting. So my name is Brian Ross. I'm an exec advisor for VMware Tanzu, but before that, I was building platforms at Sky TV. So as someone said earlier, I've been at this for quite some time, be that through VMs, Cloud Foundry, Kubernetes, and everything else in between. Keen to find what everyone's been doing and how I can help.
Good to have you. Nice to see you. Karena, I see you have your hand up. We know you because you're a technical lead for the tag, but did you want to introduce yourself?
I don't know a lot of people on this call, so I figured I may as well jump in and introduce myself. Hey, everyone. I see so many familiar, friendly faces, so I love this group already. So I am a Red Hat OpenShift product manager, so actually I have special interest in the platform as product. It's really interesting because as you know, product managers are looking at the platforms and features and requirements. It's very interesting to me. So happy to be here. That's my quick intro.
Yeah, so I think let's call it there. It's 10:08. We want to save some time for our diving into content here. So yeah, first on our agenda today, as we said at the beginning, we're gonna have the folks from the back team talk about the Backstack. If you guys could take like 20, maybe 25 minutes with Q&A, and then we'll use the latter half of the meeting to go over the work on a framework for interviews. So I'm not sure, Boris, I guess I'll look to you to lead us off, but turn it over to whoever.
I'll just really quick, Josh, is that going to leave 5 at most 10 minutes of like everything else? Because there's a few things that are sitting in sort of looking for please take a look kind of states. We can just point at them on the doc if we want, so we can take 2 to 5 minutes, but just want to throw that in there.
Yeah,
I promise to bring some things to the table for people today, so just throwing it out there.
Let's see how we'll try to time box the discussion about the interview framework so that we leave a few minutes at the end. Good
cool.
Call.
Just 2 to 5 is fine. That's perfect. Thank you.
Cool. I'm going to just kick us off with saying that obviously Backstack is a collaborative effort between a couple of companies. The idea here is more to start a conversation. There've been one of the Michaels in the channel has, been spitting out a lot of content and has been discussing the need for composable components. I like to actually use the LAMP stack. The reason a lot of the Web 2.0 happened is because people were like, oh, LAMP stack, I know what that is. I can start building with that. And I think that's currently missing. The idea here is, again, to start a conversation, not to be like Backstack is, I'm not here to sell you on it. I'm here to, or we are here to just kind of discuss, hey, what can you do? Where can you start? How can you plug in, etc. And hopefully get people engaged in the project or otherwise further in the community. With that said, Ritesh is going to actually do the presentation as he did it at KubeCon relatively recently himself. And I'm going to let him fire off from there. And ask questions in chat. I will be monitoring chat. That way Ritesh can, boogie on with the slides, and I can take note of what we need to talk about post-slide.
Thanks, Boris. And, obviously we won't go into the entire presentation here, but we're going to just quickly give you a little bit of background how this came together. And then, we can take questions. There is a video out there for the Backstack session. So if you folks are interested, please take a look. Boris, if you want to put that in the chat, that might help. But really, I think, like Boris mentioned, between Nirmata, Abound, Acuity, we kind of started working together about almost 6 to 9 months ago, as we found ourselves either meeting in the community or meeting at customers, where our open source projects and our products kind of were being used in platforms, right? So that's kind of what that was the genesis. And Nick, Murph, and myself, we started kind of talking about it, and wanted to kind of put out this idea of a Backstack, and a somewhat opinionated but composable, cloud agnostic, Kubernetes native stack, which is flexible, extensible, and provided as a reference architecture that folks can kind of get started with, right? So we talk a lot about platforms creating paved paths for developers, but here we are trying to create paved paths for platform engineers or platform engineering teams, where they don't have to start out and figure out the entire CNCF landscape. Now, obviously, we referenced the working group paper and the architecture in our session. Now, obviously, a lot of these components may or may not be needed for everybody. So what we kind of identified is 4 kind of core components that any stack would have. Again, this is based on what we've heard and seen, starting with Backstage, for as a developer portal, Argo CD for GitOps, for deploying applications, for enabling Git-based deployments, Crossplane as the universal control plane for provisioning infrastructure applications, even cloud resources, all kinds of stuff. And then Kyverno as for policy as code. Given all of these other components are Kubernetes native, having that policy-based guardrails in your platform using Kyverno kind of helps ensure security governance of the platform, right? So these are the kind of the 4 components we started with. You can add more, you can replace either of these components with other components, but as the companies and the projects kind of the folks behind these projects, we want to kind of provide this as the reference architecture. So based on this, and then again, there's a demo, but at a high level, we did this kind of quick demo at KubeCon, showing how these components can work together to enable cluster as a service or a namespace as a service type use case, which is again something that we hear very commonly, like developer self-service, as a on demand, like developers provisioning their own clusters if needed, or if they're using multi-tenant clusters, provisioning their namespaces and so on, right? So this was a quick high level reference architecture.
Just curious can I ask a question on that one?
Yeah, yes, please.
So do you find like there's this central hub which becomes like a pet that kind of has to be built independently, and then the rest of the stuff, the spokes are kind of automated from that point? Yeah, like, can you describe how that hub cluster gets built?
Yeah, and I'll defer to Murph on that. I think he kind of worked on a lot of this stuff. Murph, if you want to go a little bit deeper into that. And again, we have a GitHub repo, and there are links at the end of the presentation we'll share. But Murph.
Yeah, so in this particular case, the use case is Kubernetes clusters as a service, but that's just one example. So you've got this hub and spoke. Now there still is this idea of a control plane for all things, but that's a logical control plane. It's not just a single instance. It is for the demo, but it doesn't need to be. And so you end up with a distributed capability by having multiple different control planes for different regions, for different domains. You can essentially establish the control planes along your fault domains is the typical design. and the idea behind that. So in this case, yes, it is a hub and spoke, but that's not actually core to the approach. I think that's good feedback. We can clarify that, because yeah, just looking at this architecture diagram is like, oh, hub and spoke. Okay, got it. Yeah, I think that's.
You've actually worked out how to deploy. Well, if it was a combined hub and spoke kind of singleton, you would have deployed the hub too.
Yeah. So you can the hub, so to speak, can be put anywhere, and you can have more than one. And so it's just a control plane rather than the control plane.
Thank you.
Cool. So yeah, obviously, this is still work in progress. I think our goal is to kind of, collaborate with the working group, collaborate with broader community, to kind of, and based on the feedback we've received, from the session, take this further, and evolve it for various use cases, providing additional, adding more capabilities and so on, right? So would love to get more feedback. And yeah, I think this is kind of the high level, like this is a link to the code base. We will be moving it to its own org and repo, and right now there are 4 projects involved in this. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to share. Again, the demo itself is available as part of the session recording, and we can take any questions. Nick, Murph, Boris, and I can answer. And yeah, again, would love to get feedback and would love to collaborate.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here with us. One thing that comes to mind for me, I don't know for everyone else in the group, but like look at the Canoe effort, Cloud Native Operational Excellence. They started a little thing. They use Backstage, Argo, and Crossplane, and they kind of bootstrap. I think they just use a single cluster and put everything on it or something. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't really have any ask around that, except one thing that's interesting to me is Kyverno. I mean, you folks are the Kyverno folks, so maybe that explains part of it. But like, why is Kyverno particularly important? Like a top line element in the stack, like contrasting that with say Canoe that didn't choose to make a policy engine up there.
Yeah, so we've had that conversation with Canoe team, right? And they've recognized that policy and governance is a missing component in their stack, right? So I think that will happen, that will evolve. But Kyverno, I think, plays a couple of different roles over here. One is, and which is not very commonly known, is it enables automation between some of these components. For example, when a new cluster comes up, it can actually register that cluster secret with Argo CD there, so that Argo CD can start provisioning applications on that cluster, right? So that Kyverno has that capability of validate, mutate, and generate, which makes it very powerful for platform engineers trying to do automation without writing a ton of custom code. In fact, in the community, what we see is a lot of so-called controllers or operators that people have written like years ago getting replaced with Kyverno. Think of it as more like a meta controller, which can trigger certain activities like provisioning and so on, based on other triggers like resources getting created, modified, update, and deleted and whatnot, right? So that's the role it plays. And then obviously in spoke clusters, it provides that guardrails, whether it's best practice policies, security policies, image verification, things of that nature that a lot of enterprises need. And the kind of, especially in regulated industries, we see a lot of enterprises who want to bake in all of the security, compliance, governance as part of the platform.
Cool. So it helps with applying automation, and it can help with like runtime policy, runtime compliance.
Yes, configuration, security, policies, compliance, and so on. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to see the overlap of the policy
and just one other thought that actually Nick put in, and I kind of didn't mention it, but one of the things we're seeing, especially with things like policies and Kyverno, is this whole concept of shift left. So applying these policies in your CI/CD pipeline. So if you're doing GitOps and you want to ensure that whatever is being pushed to your clusters is configured correctly, configured securely, you can actually run Kyverno in your as a GitHub action in your CI/CD pipeline. So get that feedback to developers before anything gets deployed. So I think that's a trend we are seeing more and more, kind of with GitOps.
This is really cool. Thank you for sharing. And as Josh said, it's clearly aligned with what Canoe's doing, almost to the point where it feels strange to be separate, because there's like 100% overlap on the major tools, especially once they get like something around governance in. But the question I sort of have is, like, a lot of these things are talking about how to like get started from a completely greenfield stack. Reality is that's not where most companies are. And if they have a greenfield stack over in the corner, they also have all their other things that they still have to worry about. And even if it's greenfield today, it very quickly becomes a day two problem. Like, what is the plan for the backstack? Like, I can appreciate it's a young project, so I'm not expecting you to have answers today to answer all of the things for day 1000. But how are you looking at trying to address sort of the platform as an existing feature within an organization rather than a rebuild? And how are you looking to address the idea of that platform needing to evolve over time and manage day two stuff?
Yeah, so one thing I'd say there, responding to the Canoe stuff as well, I think ultimately the projects will converge at some point. Right now, Canoe is very AWS focused. Backstack originated as not that to begin with, and so that creates a natural separation at the moment. But I think
you can sort of maybe bring the other cloud providers to Canoe, because I know they talk about wanting other cloud providers and things. So that's an opportunity to like bring that.
I think so.
That's awesome.
I absolutely think that, and at some point, the backstack could conceivably be just another Canoe reference implementation if the Canoe model gains traction. Frankly, I'd rather see it be branded as the platform working group, the platform group's model, because it's your model that's on the same site. It looks the same, right? So, so there's a lot of commonalities here, and I think ultimately they would likely converge. On the brownfield perspective, we are thinking of it more in terms of similar to the LAMP stack idea of what do I need to get started quickly? What does good look like, at a high level? That said, it can also serve as a bit of a lighthouse for groups that are looking to evolve their stack over time. And the beauty of the CNCF landscape is you can bring in more or less of the components. We picked these four because they work together really well, and they are combined in interesting ways, and they complement each other really nicely. But I think there's a natural extensibility there that leans on the whole sort of the platform model and so we haven't written a lot about that. And as you say, we're very focused on the getting started experience, and that is sort of the main charter. But I think it's a good shout to keep that evolution story in mind.
Hello.
I had a question about where the what are the layers that start going on top of this to make the actual developer experience? Specifically in terms of like frameworks, SDKs, a lot of the current platform stuff is very focused on speeding up infrastructure access for dev teams, but you need quite a bit of glue for them to develop on a stack that allows them to do things that don't require them to think too much about the underlying infrastructure. And so you're abstracting away a lot of what the platform teams need to deal with, but how does this extend up to the developers?
It is absolutely platform engineering focused. So when you say the developers, my first question is which developers? because if it's platform engineering as a practice and platform engineering as a discipline, that's the primary audience for sure. As far as then application consumers and how they experience that, that is, so within the demo, it's through the software catalog. So their primary experience is through the Backstage scaffolder and that sort of internal developer platform as a way for the infrastructure teams to expose their capabilities to end users. And that's the front door. But because everything is just a Kubernetes API at the end of the day, anything that allows you to interact with Kubernetes becomes an option. We don't have too many prescriptive ideas there yet, but we'd love to have some. So
yeah, I think that I don't think we started with that as one of the goals at this point, right? I mean, I think the goal, the platform kind of, the goal was to get the platform, a layer established, and then different organizations, different types of developers have different needs. So I think as long as we can address most of those needs through the platform, I think that's probably where we would stop, but not at this point, not go into more beyond that from a developer perspective. But again, those are ideas. We're open to some of those ideas, and see how we can evolve it further.
Well, it brings up an interesting question of like who the platforms are also targeted at, because there's going to be more and more off the shelf, effectively, which could come from a catalog. And, probably over time, fewer and fewer bespoke internal applications. So your idea of developer or user probably change a bit over time.
True. Yep.
Yeah, I put in chat, I think focusing on the platform engineers developer experience is something I'm a big fan of, because what we see with software is that if you have bad developer experience, you make bad user experience. We're just saying that our developer experience is for platform engineers, and they'll make better user experience, which is developer experience for app devs. So I don't think it's a problem, in my opinion, personally, if you're building tools which will enable platform engineers to have breathing space and thinking space and experience themselves, so that they have the time to build the experiences that they want to. Like, I think that's cool. I guess I asked the question about day 2, and I think, thank you, Murph, for the response. I thought that was really good. I just wanted to add another colorful thing of these would be examples of where it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts as you work with people, as you progress with the Backstack, is the experience of 5 p.m. on a Tuesday. Brain just went blank. I will put it in chat when I come up with it. But I have basically a good use experience thing that it would be nice to hear, based on actually trying to roll out Backstack to places. So I'll shush now. Sorry.
Personally hyper conscious that we've consumed the entire meeting, so I want to apologize for that. But we did set up a chat on the CNCF Slack, so if people want to join that channel and keep this going, that'd be fantastic.
What is that called? Backstack?
I think it's Backstack Dev. Is that right?
Yeah, I see it in there. Put some links in.
There's Backstack. Yeah, just Backstack. Is a public.
Just Backstack. There it is.
Colin, did you want to chime in?
I was trying to think of if you answered my question that I was about to ask already. And so if you've covered it, then I apologize. One area that I'm really interested in, and especially as we start bringing in, in comparing to LampStack, right? When I think about LampStack, I'm thinking, okay, what stack am I going to choose for my individual application? I'm going to have many applications. And in the platform space, an interesting evolution that we've seen is kind of, how do we treat the idea of having multiple platforms or multiple instances of platforms? And I think, Josh, you may have touched on that with the hub and spoke, and that's what I was trying to get in my head. But do you see this positioned more as kind of that foundational kind of core platform, and then you're creating new cluster instances that are individual platform instances for other teams? We've been playing around with some of this terminology, and I've been kind of wondering how that evolved, but curious if if you've kind of thought about that multi-platform experience, or if this is kind of a singular platform, or just something there. Just curious your thoughts.
Yeah. So what I've seen, so I work for Upbound, and we maintain the Crossplane project. But so one of the things we've seen is there's this strong desire amongst platform groups for one control plane to rule them all, and it never works. It never ever works. So there's a need to think about the control domains for your infrastructure. And so I think that's putting it that way, phrasing it, so reminding people that, yeah, LampStack is focused on a per application basis. So thinking about this in a per platform basis makes sense. Now, they're probably bigger than your traditional LampStack app, right? Which was often very hyper-focused. And so a backstack-based platform will have a larger surface area. But it shouldn't be sort of one ring kind of approach. And so I think I think you've hit on a very salient point, that it's not intended to be the be all end all. And that's why I'm hopeful that, looking back at the Canoe conversation, I'm hopeful that the backstack could be just one of several reference implementations. And I think Canoe is oriented in that direction, although right now all of their work is focused on this one reference implementation. But I'd love to see that open up, and have more options there. And I think for exactly the reason that you raised.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in unpacking that a little more. I think that might be a really good blog for the group. Maybe feedback into the white paper, something there. So happy to chat. I'll jump in the channels and try to bubble that up. I think you guys are positioned well, for just like, again, associating LampStack and everything else. I think you're positioned well for that conversation and help drive that. So I would love to help you guys.
Yeah, well, it'll be dangerous if we get too far into the metaphor. Metaphors are always tricky, but it's been very useful for us so far, and I think it'll continue to be useful for at least a little while yet.
All right. So thank you all so much for that introduction, and thank everyone for the questions. Yeah, you're definitely helping move us forward, so it's appreciated. I want to be conscious of the time. We're at about 10:35. So let's go ahead and now move on. Thanks again. Let's move on to the discussing what started as the Platform as Product initiative. So I guess Michael, keep me honest here. Basically, we originally were working on a paper, but our real goal here is to vet out this current state of the industry around treating platform as a product, or maybe I've actually been thinking it's around platform maturity. See what we can learn based on what we've done so far before we sit down to write another paper. And so what the past couple weeks, we've been iterating on this document, which did I post it into the chat just now? Yeah, where we're trying to arrive at a shared framework so that, let's say there's 20 people in this call and there's a lot of other folks that might want to conduct an interview, so that we could get some loose coupling, some general consistency in what we're asking and what we're learning. Yeah, and then, from this, maybe we will write that Platform as Product paper. Maybe we'll just create reports on the maturity of the industry. Maybe we'll create blog posts. We're not 100% sure, but we kind of gone back to this interview framework as our starting point.
Yeah, well said. And thanks for reorganizing this doc. So this, there was a lot of ideas about what this could be. It seems like where we're getting to is more of a focus on the operational side of what this product look like on the platform side of things, or some ideas around going a little more upstream to look at more of the business and engineering leadership in terms of how they understood the value of the platform as a strategic investment. But it seems like for this effort, it really is like all of the hypotheses and the makings of the framework, they are very operational, right? It's like, how do these things look like now, right? How do you understand the problem? How do you enable self-serve? How do you solution? How do you roll things out? Do you measure success? What KPIs do you attach to them? One of the things we wanted to figure out on this call is that the right focus for this? And it seems like, based on the work in this document, that's kind of the first effort. Is to get like a
for me, I was and maybe I don't know how other people have approached this, but as we gathered these hypotheses, I'm just going through them, and then if we agree that these are the general hypotheses we want to vet out, then I'm thinking we can create questions based on this. But I guess that's what you're asking, Michael, is the hypotheses orienting towards a certain, the actual platform team?
Yeah, actually, David might have feel like
I would agree, and it kind of put some comments in there to the same point, that it feels like we published a maturity model, knowing what the state of the industry is with respect to the maturity model is like a first step before we go into platform as a product. Because if we find that the industry is much less mature and not even close to actually implementing platform as a product, then we can orient the discussion around platform as a product with, okay, where do you start with the basics, right? Of behaving with empathy and understanding your users and all of that, versus, what it would be if we find that there are more advanced practitioners that are ready to use more advanced tools with product. So it's only a good idea, I think.
I think on that point, I don't see them as mutually exclusive, actually. I just see it the operational side of product within the team. Because if we're doing this in kind of a generative way, instead of leading the questions of like, how do you do X? How do you do Y? How do you do Z? Assuming that they have this, they do all of these things in the first place. If we ask it in a more generative, open-ended way that Lou was talking about, we'll see if they do these things, right? And then in the background, when we're doing synthesis, we'll see, oh, actually, some teams very much in practice follow like good product thinking around this stuff. Other teams, not so much, right? Things are very ad hoc, not a lot of, strategic thought behind effort, or prioritization is like a very loosey-goosey kind of game they play. So that's on us to figure out, right? But I think it doesn't.
Leading questions tend to give you that don't give you the greatest results in terms of what people's self-perception is, right? Like I've seen self-assessments that came back, oh, we're all cloud native, like we're all in the cloud, right? And that's just, I know for the industry they're not. So I'd agree, like adding, and that's what's nice about the maturity model, is it's a way for people to a little more objectively evaluate themselves. But even then, like everyone's going to claim they're far more mature. So our interview questions need to kind of tease out where they actually are, what the practice is.
Yeah, and generally the best way to do that is to ask historical questions, like how have you done something, is a great indicator of how things actually work, to get away from the aspirational stuff. But I think just being mindful of that as a focus, and maybe we can post some more content on like how to frame a good generative question as a resource for everybody. So as we asynchronously work on this, we all have a kind of a common definition of how things should look like. Because right now it's a little bit of both. It's like part generative, part kind of leading and prescriptive almost. So it'd be good to kind of level set on. This is open-ended. We're trying to learn how things actually happen. Josh.
Yeah, I'm on that point. I kind of like what you said. Like we're gonna suss out how they operate their team as well as how they present it as a product. It's almost the same questions. I kind of think that will suss out both. In other words, if I ask you what capabilities you're providing in your and then you say, well, I provide infrastructure, or I don't even know what the list of capabilities is, or I provide an interface, with a portal. Like we'll be able to tell the state based on, and I think Michael, you've even said this, it's about asking behavioral questions. We mostly want to know the what, and then we'll leave it to us here to figure out to intuit out, what that means.
Yeah, and I saw that you wrote, you had some. I like that you actually broken down, into the next step of this thing. It's like how we're gonna carry this out. Part of it is tools. Do we have a little budget for like Dovetail or Condense or anything that we can standardize the work? I think that will make life a lot easier. If we have videos, we upload them, transcript, everybody can labels get, affinity mapped, then we have themes. There's like a standardization we can rally around. Because it's going to be a hell of a time doing this in docs. I've done it before in projects, but never in an open source, people coming in and out kind of way.
There's definitely going to be a challenge. I like that you brought that up. So you have suggestions? Yeah, we could ask. We could see.
Yeah, there are good tools now.
And so we can check with CNCF. We can also, historically, what we've done is we've had sponsorship, essentially. Like, if a person who's sitting in here is like, my company would have the ability to sponsor something towards that. And the third thing would be to talk to the companies of tools that we want to use. We can potentially give them a vote of confidence, like give them a quote, give them a feature, whatever, of having been worked with the community, and they might give it to us for free for a contained project or whatever. So that's worked quite well for me for CNCF related work.
Yeah,
so,
I totally forgot about the perks of open source. Yeah,
exactly. So the pros and cons.
So I'm thinking I don't know if on the call is the place to continue that conversation, but let's figure out who we can ask. Yeah, what's up, Karina?
So I was just looking through the doc again. So I'm going to date myself, but when I used to do ITIL and COBIT assessments way back in the day, we usually go through, and I'm sure some of you have done this too, I'm hoping, we go through and you have to get a representation from different teams within the company. If it's just one person that has one view, it's not accurate. So I guess in here, it'd be good to capture how many people at what levels of the organization, because a team lead is going to give a different view than somebody doing the day-to-day work. Somebody consuming the platform is going to give a different view than people building or operating the platform. So I just want to make sure that maybe I missed it in the doc, but that's at least captured. And then we talk a lot about tools, what tools you're using, what processes. It'd be helpful if we up it a level and start with, what are your priorities? And I know you put this in here too, but what are your priorities? What are your goals that you're trying to meet right now? What are your biggest impediments? And then later on, start talking about, what tools are you using to do this? So kind of capture the business case and then get further down into the details. Just a couple of thoughts there.
Yeah, this is a little bit playing out the way that we're going to see in these organizations where like more product-y folk want to focus on like abstracted away problems, priorities, solutions, and people who are more technical are like process, tools, solving stuff. Now, I think that's like an inherent tension generally. I don't want to pigeonhole people, but I feel like that's going to play out quite a bit. So in terms of, that's a good call out. Depends how ambitious we want to be with this. I think this effort will almost never end if we go kind of like product leaders, kind of senior technical folks who drove the implementation, product people on the team, and then consumers to like gut check that you say you do these things in this kind of way, but consumers say otherwise in your company. We need to, for like the first effort, we need to scope it down to something more tangible that still gives us value. Otherwise, the effort would be we'd end up talking to like a handful of companies only to like mobilize the folks within them.
Actually, I was kind of wondering, Michael, how do we plan? Like, I'm gonna kind of ad hoc. Like, I've got people at Red Hat already that have offered to be interviewed. Is that kind of our plan? Like, if you have someone to interview, you just step up and use the framework and interview them, or are we gonna do something more vetted? And
yeah, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that, and I don't have like a definitive answer.
I think the
I think the diversity of this group, meaning like if it's not just one person that knows somebody interviewing them, like that's going to get maybe a more biased response because they already know that person. Whereas if we have people from this group that they don't know that are participating in that interview, I think you're going to get more value out of it. But scheduling that maybe is the challenge, right? It's like, how do we make sure that 3 or 4 people that are members of this group are part of that interview?
Yeah. And then, can we, oh, sorry, Dominic.
I mean, there's 2 questions in that basically, or I at least can read 2 questions from that. The first one is, how do we recruit? And the second one is, like, how do we interview, or more precisely, who does the interview? I think in our discussions initially, we were pretty open that everybody should be able to interview, and that's why we wanted to create a good guideline with which everybody can, come up with the same results or have at least the same context in which they can go through the interview. So that's a really important piece of the whole research, having a document that sets you up in the right context and gives you the right information that you need in order to have such a good interview experience for yourself and for the interviewee. And the second thing is the recruiting question. We initially had a discussion around, should we do an open survey and then use like a questionnaire as a means of recruiting people and finding the right people. But then the question is, like, how many people, and especially how many leaders, will you get through such a survey? And the second question is, how much effort do you need in order to have a good survey that really gives you the results you expect? So we drove in the discussion so far, we rather went for using our broad network and also very diverse network. And we also brought in the support from Puya, who has good connections to the CNCF end user group. Already contacted them in the KubeCon, and also got some quite positive response. So I think for the recruiting sense, it's definitely, we have a quite diverse network. I think that's really helpful. And for the other question, who should be the one, I guess that depends really on who wants to do it, and us preparing the right documents and the right tools that they can easily do it.
Same.
Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So Michael, I'm just thinking right now, like, I think like we have to design some sort of the questionnaire, because I think the question we're asking for the different individual that come in phases. So number one, I think if we're asking a question that is having like if the question is not idempotent, meaning if you ask me a question and if you ask the other person the same question, is that 2 different meaning from the first question, then for the next question is rather difficult to track whether he whether he understand my question in a great sense or not. So that's where I actually did a research way back, I think 2-3 years back, on DevOps project. And also I see there's another paper that is all written by, I think, Google on Jora Matrix. And they did some kind of in the new stack. So I think we have to check, like, the question should be idempotent. It's meaning like we have to starting in the phase, and then we have to design a questionnaire upfront as well. Might be like which question, because some question having some kind of tendency of subset of people, and some question has a broader audience to it. So I can share some example with not related to the questionnaire designer, but have some sketches from previous things that we actually articulate and to start and think about it.
Good point. Josh.
I was just gonna say that that's probably a good lead in to where we're at right now. in that document, which is that I think people can still put in more hypotheses if you want. But I think we're kind of iterating now into that framework, into those questions. Okay, here's the hypotheses that we want to prove or disprove. Now, what's a list of, right now the questions are too many, but what's a list of questions that would help suss that out? I think that's kind of where we're at now. I guess, Michael, I want to be conscious that it's 10:51. Do you want to wrap us up in the next minute or two?
Yeah, I was just thinking about like concrete next steps with a large group working asynchronously around questions. I mean, it seems like we've done a pretty good job within the doc to like surface some questions and have some conversations. One of the immediate things I wanted to see is, if we're going to interview product folk on the team as well, if those questions are going to look a little differently to get a sense of what their reality looks like. And then if some of the product folk here want to kind of break off and approach it from that side. But generally, I'm open to, what is, does anybody have a strong preference or opinion of what would work best going forward to get to an interview framework that's generative, where everything we're adding in it ties back to like one of the core hypotheses we actually want to understand around the operational reality in these companies.
I think, Michael, I think a next step for us, a deliverable might be a document, which is a template, which any interviewer, could just pick up and go. Like maybe that's our North Star for our next step.
Yeah. So what, 2 weeks from now, we can rally. Like, it'd be great if next working group session, we can devote like a good half hour just to run through the script together, because that will give us more focused conversation. Right now, we're like a little bit in the abstract, tangible. So I think that's a good goal. And then, people can sync up as they want to in the meantime around the work.
So you're basically saying, Josh, that the goal is, in the absence of having multiple people in the group conducting the interview framework itself should be as closely representative of this group as possible, such that still happens.
Yeah. I mean, I still do. I wasn't necessarily saying it shouldn't be folks from this group. I would love if we had at least 2 people in every interview, and one of the folks from this group. But yeah, I guess I was thinking the more important thing is just a common template that we all start from.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Standardization is going to be important in getting good results here.
Yeah, and we'll iterate a little as we go. Nothing's perfect. Okay, so that's in 2 weeks from now. So I want to let's put a pin in that discussion here. This is a lot of good feedback here, and I think we're kind of aligned that we're moving in the right direction with that document. So that's good, and we'll keep working on it asynchronously. And in 2 weeks, maybe we'll have the template ready. Okay, I want to, if it's okay, Abby, can I let you handle the last 6 minutes here?
Sure. It's just a few minutes. I wanted to call attention to a few other much smaller pieces of work going on, but things that people may be interested in. There's quite a large group. You all might have diverse interests. So first of all, Platform Engineering Day, we had hoped to maybe get some time for submission reviews. I know there was a post in the working group channel of a submission, and that we can use that to get feedback if you like on ideas. So that was from Antoine. Thank you very much. And maybe we can do that async a bit, but that is the submissions are due by December 1st. The focus is on the platform engineering as a product, as a entire capability over any one, here's how you write the YAML to deploy the thing. Whereas the platform engineering track at KubeCon is a little bit more focused on that sort of delivery side. So if you have talks that you've put in for platform engineering track, you're welcome to try your hand at Platform Engineering Day. If you have talks that are maybe more general than the ones that might get accepted at Platform Engineering track, this would be a good place to put it. And in general, the more we get, the more likely it is we get another one of these at another KubeCon in 2025. So definitely advertise and suggest people both submit and join us in Paris. Other ongoing work. So obviously we had a really good chat around platform as a product. So I'm going to skip through that one. Michael, just because your voice might be sore. And I want to call out, there was a really great blog proposed in issue number 501, which is around the two-sided market concept behind that can have a play in regards to the maturity model. And the maturity model doesn't speak directly to it. So this is Victor kind of seeing an opportunity to like build on the kind of concepts within the maturity model, which I think is exactly what we want to try and encourage. There's been review by a number of people within the group, and his goal is to get that published in the next 2 weeks. So basically by the time we're on this next call. So if anyone would like to have a look, there's a few open questions which would restrain submission right away or release right away, but we're getting there. And so, yeah, please have a look. The other thing to call out is that that was a really good suggestion of a blog post, but it was sort of, it just landed at a good time with a pretty mature blog that people had time to review. And what we don't want to have happen is that like ideas get sort of different levels of support. We want, you know, every voice to have the opportunity to be supported and successful within the working group in a consistent, relatively consistent way. At the end of the day, we're all volunteers in open source, but relatively consistent. And so what I've been working on is how to try and support that within our constraints and within our group. So number 485 here at the bottom, I have written a doc that captures why I think this is a problem, or, you know, an opportunity, what I think would be necessary for us to be successful, and then started to capture some of the details behind it, but have left those a bit hazy as I'm starting to build consensus that I'm even looking at a problem that we want to solve. So again, especially if you are new to the group and you have passion and ideas around things and want to share them, this is something that I actively want to be something that is a support and not a hindrance or a friction. So if you're looking at this and going, nope, I wouldn't want to produce a new idea, that's something that I want to know now, so that we can make sure you get support. But the reason, so you can read that, and if the reasons aren't clear as to why it'd be valuable and why we want to do it, that would be something I'd want to try and clarify in that writing and in that doc so that we can have success there. And then the last piece, which isn't on here, is what we're going to spin up in the next kind of week or so, is a look back at the glossary that we have an issue already open, but we haven't really started work on it yet. The glossary was sort of a it's something that was born out of the white paper, not out of premeditated thought, but more out of like, oh, that would be a really useful thing that sort of came out of it. And what we want to do is take a step back and go back through that loop and make sure that the glossary is a standalone high value product from the working group. And so we expect it to have the same outcomes, as in you can go here to understand the words that we use in the different publications from within the working group, and hopefully use this to help your organization standardize on language that they might want to use. But we might see that the format changes. We might see that the words used change. We're sort of open, and we see this as a smaller scale effort than something like the research effort going on that Michael's and leading, but something that we want to definitely get community support on. So if you're interested in that, go ahead. Thank you, Josh, for adding information there. I think it was Josh. Somebody, thank you. Please click on that and follow the issue, and we'll make sure that information goes into that issue as and when it starts to properly kick off. So that was my rapid fire announcements of things. Those are all, please take a look. And if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them to me in Slack.
Yes, and just a final question, Abby and everyone. Did anyone from this group has actually submitted as a program committee for Platform Engineering Day? For reviewing the season? Okay. Brian actually did it.
Oh, going to this week.
No, for the program committee, like for platform.
I don't know how to do that though.
Stacy,
that's already done, I think.
Yeah, Stacy Potter asked me to jump on that. I guess she's involved as well.
She's one of the chairs. So the two chairs are Stacy and Paula Kennedy. And then there'll be a number of reviewers under that. And then so on. But this is also, sorry, another call out for that. If you have somebody who wants to sponsor, if you're a company that wants to sponsor, we're already talking to some awesome companies, some of whom are represented here on the call. Anyone else who has that, again, these are ways in which we continue to build a reputation that allows for platform engineering outside of the technical, but as like the engineering and product and that kind of thing, which we all passionately discuss for the last 20 minutes. Have that be a part of the CNCF Colo days. Those are the things that help us get there. So please, yeah.
I'm trying to get ThoughtWorks involved with Engineering Day. I'll let you know.
Cool. Yeah. I know that's been a little bit tighter recently, so.
Yes, it has.
All right. Well, we are at time. So really appreciate everyone joining, and we'll post up the video soon. And yeah, we'll see you all online.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
everyone.
one.
Bye.